I actually don't know if we're starting right now or not, but I just wanted to go ahead and introduce myself to a few faces that may not know me. I'm Paisley Grosky, and I'm from Robertson County. And I guess Megan is going to come back, hop on in a minute. But if not, I just want to go ahead and introduce myself. And I'm Paisley, by the way.
Thank you for the introduction, Paisley. I don't know if we're starting yet or not. I don't know if we're waiting for Megan. Who's doing the slideshow? Who has that up?
I have the slideshow on here. I don't know if I need a screen share or not.
Okay, I don't know when we're supposed to start, but I am Cole Sufall from Freestone County. I'm one of the speakers tonight.
I will ask Megan if she wants us to go ahead and start.
Okay, sounds good.
Can y'all hear Travis okay?
Yes, ma'am. Speakers, do y'all's Chromebooks say that it's recording at the moment, or whatever app y'all are on?
Yes.
Yes.
It does? Okay,
Yes.
Megan told us she gave me the go to go ahead and start, so I will go ahead and share my screen with y'all so I can pull up the slideshow. Make sure that this is on. Okay. Oop, that is the wrong one. Hang on, y'all. Give me one.
Paisley, I can share the slides. I already have it pulled up if you need me to. I can screen share it or whatever.
You go ahead and do that then, since I was struggling. You can go ahead and pull it up. That may be.
Actually, 1 second.
Okay, you take your time. But Megan said to give us the go whenever we're ready.
Okay.
One moment for technical difficulties. I'm going to go ask Cassie. Paisley, just start talking and maybe introduce you and Cole or whatever you want to do.
Okay, I will go ahead and start speaking. So, I don't know about y'all, but I've been doing reasons for a very long time now, competitively since 6th grade. So, I have been doing a lot of reasons. I actually went to nationals back in October and I did 6 sets there, and that's a whole lot. And I'm super excited to get started today, and I wanted to go ahead and if y'all don't want to speak, that's totally fine. You can drop it in the chat box. I wanted to ask if this is the first time for y'all, or if y'all have actually given a set before, and just whatever y'all prefer in the chat box.
All right, Paisley. Y'all should be able to see the slides now.
We've been able to see it.
Oh, I didn't realize y'all could until just now. Didn't know that, so that's good.
You're good.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, I was just doing an icebreaker. People
Oh,
are
I didn't know
commenting
that. My
in the
bad.
chat.
Continue what you're
You're
doing.
good. They're commenting in the chat about how many times you've done it. We have 3 beginners in the house. Let's go. Beginners are the best. Okay. Travis, if you want to go ahead and start with the slideshow, I think you're totally good to go. We're really ready for it.
Cole, did you introduce yourself? I wasn't here. I don't know.
Yes, I introduced myself earlier. I guess I should have mentioned that I have also been doing reasons for a long time. I am starting to get very comfortable with my reason sets and excited to talk about it today.
Wonderful. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of introduce myself before we jump into the slides. As it says on the screen, Travis Barrett here from Leon County, I guess in Normandy. Kind of been judging most of my life, kind of since I kind of started when my brother did, and kind of when I was about 5, and kind of just grew up with it then, and kind of fell in love with the reasons portions of it. And so I've been given reasons since I guess pretty much I started judging, and so that's one thing I'm pretty passionate about, and hope what we say tonight kind of strikes a passion for y'all to really enjoy reasons the way that I know us three presenting tonight do. So I really hope that's what we can accomplish tonight. So we're gonna get kind of jumped into our slideshow. So giving oral reasons and livestock judging. So let me see if I can figure this out. I'm not the most technically inclined. Did it change? Perfect. I'm not sure why. Okay, I don't know why I can't hear you sometimes, but it's fine. All right, so oral reasons, kind of just the overview or kind of definition. So oral reasons, as you can see on the screen, are concise presentations given during judging contests to justify the placement of animals. And each presentation is worth up to 50 points, just like your classes will be. And they should be under 2 minutes. A lot of times nowadays, they try to keep reasons set from about a minute and 5 seconds to about that a minute and 20 to 25 seconds. So pretty short set, short and sweet. And they should be delivered fluently and accurately using livestock terminology, integrating the decision-making process involved in placement. So everything that goes through your mind when you're placing a class and your reasons that you tell yourself pretty much, the reasons that you place a class, however it is, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 4, or the other ways you can place a class, you're pretty much taking that reasoning that you place the class in your head and verbally speaking it to a set of judges and kind of just letting them know why you placed the class that way and how you feel. And just kind of like it says, just giving your reasoning based on that class and why you placed it that way. So pretty straightforward on what it is. Now, when it comes to actually giving them, that's when the fun starts. So benefits from reasons. Paisley, I'm just going to let you take over.
Okay, this is great. So benefits from reasons. Now, this is only a few, but there is so many that aren't even on here. I cannot emphasize that enough. So it allows you to think more clearly. I definitely think that reasons is all about your mindset. You need to go into a good mindset and going into your set. And I think staying clear and making sure your thoughts are clear, your words are clear, is the best way you're going to have the best set that you're going to give in that contest. It also improves your speaking voice. As you can tell right now, this is definitely not how I speak in a regular conversation, but this has definitely enhanced me to be more prepared for a reason set and basically just helped me more for my later career when I use my public speaking voice. And developing a memory is good. Lots of people like to memorize their sets. I'm kind of in between. Sometimes I memorize it, and other times I like to do a little bit of improv. It can definitely range from each person how you would like to do it. I definitely think that if you memorize it too much, you can get ahead of yourself, probably jinx yourself out. So I would just try to keep your thoughts as clear, organized, and try to memorize a little bit, but don't get too ahead of yourself where you're stressing so much on getting your set perfect. They don't know your set. So you can do it however you want to do it. So just feel comfortable in how you do it and confident.
Paisley, one thing I wanted to add to that is everything you said was just spot on, but something that's not on our slideshow that I kind of feel is really important that benefits you from reasons outside of just the actual reasons room or outside the judging arena. When you think as you grow up, you're going to make a lot of decisions in your life, whether that's an example we a lot of times use is like if you go to buy a vehicle and you're trying to decide between, say, Ford, Chevy, GMC, and Dodge, that's 4 trucks right there. And reasons will allow you to, once you get past your high school career and actually giving reasons in a livestock judging contest, it allows you, like Paisley said, to think clearly and state your thoughts and kind of lay out everything you have and place those in order in your head and give valid reasons why you place that. No different than if you were buying a truck and you said, well, I want to buy Dodge over Ford for these reasons. So yes, reasons are fun and they're really important during livestock judging, but these are going to last way past your livestock judging career and out throughout your whole entire life. And so that's one big benefit that reasons provides outside of high school. And I just wanted to add that little nugget. If this thing will
Travis, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, And if it's kind of the same basics, we can skip past it because I know we have a lot of slides in here. And Cole, you can go ahead and take over.
All right. So there's more benefits.
Oh, I skipped it. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll skip that one. So the steps for successful reasons, and making a set of reasons seems difficult at times, and especially when you're a beginner and you haven't really done that before. But really, once you do it enough and you get the hang of it, it's super, super easy. Well, not easy, but it gets better over time and you get more comfortable. And really, a big thing is confidence. Oh, Christopher, cannot see the slides.
We have the slides pulled up. So is there what? I'm seeing the slide. Am I doing some? Do you have your screen covered by something, or is your internet just lacking? It could be lacking, or it could just be me not knowing that much about Wi-Fi. So we will work on that right now.
Yeah, Paisley, I see your slides.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so like I was saying, it all starts with confidence. You have to walk in there, and I'll just go with the slide, but you have to stand up straight, put your hands behind your back. And what this is you're just having to have good posture. That way you have a clear speaking voice. And whenever you're speaking, speak louder than you normally would. How I speak in the reasons room versus how I speak with somebody else in person is way, way different. And in the reasons room, I will have a louder voice. I will have a more clear pronunciation of words. And I will try to directly state my point like I am right now, while in a real life conversation, I'm very much casual, I'm quieter, and I'm not worried about having a clear, direct line of thought most of the time. But you also don't want to be too, I guess, bossy around them. You want to be comfortable too. So, like saying good morning or good afternoon or hi or hello, it really changes the judge's perception of you. Instead of just a kid who's in there to give a set of reasons and get out quickly, you are somebody who is comfortable doing your set of reasons and you actually enjoy what you're doing. A big thing about public speaking too is eye contact. But if you're in that situation where you're uncomfortable with speaking in front of somebody you've never seen before, and with a speech that you had maybe an hour to get together or even less, it doesn't have to be right in their eyes whenever you're looking at them. You can look over their head or on their forehead, as long as you're looking in their general direction and you aren't getting distracted by anything else in the room. It's okay, but make sure you do have good, solid eye contact. And that's one of those things that develops over time and you get more comfortable doing whenever you're giving more and more sets over time.
Yes, I totally agree with staring at the forehead trick. I personally do that in every single set because I know I can get really nervous right before I go into a big set and I want to get my set just perfect. So sometimes the eye contact is a little bit overwhelming for me. So I stare right at the bridge of the forehead and it looks like you're looking straight into their eyes. So I think it's a little cheat code to staying calm and collected and still maintaining strong and confident eye contact.
Yes, great explanation. So whenever you're talking in your set of reasons, you don't want to stutter, you don't want to hesitate. So you don't want to add words or phrases that have no meaning. You don't want to go in there and say, well, I placed the market class 1, 2, then 3, then 4. You want to be very clear and concise with your reasons because you don't have much time in the room. I mean, it's not limited by any means, but you don't want to sit there and ramble on. So just having a clear thought before you go in and really studying your content and your notes helps you develop a clear speech and a clear set of reasons that the judges will more easily understand and overall gives you a better score. So whenever you're talking in your set of reasons, you want to state the obvious. If you have a lamb or a steer who is the heaviest muscle in the class and it's obvious, you want to talk about that point. You want to make it known that this is the heaviest animal in the class. And so it's really just pointing out these key details in your placings that's important. And so really whenever you're giving your set of reasons, you want to list all the major details of your class and in your set of reasons. Because the judge, they've seen the class before. They know how accurate your descriptions are. And those key points about the animals, they stand out. And so if you mention them very clearly in your set of reasons, the better it is for you and the judge. And you want to be descriptive. You want to actually visualize the animal. One thing that I do, or how I give my sets of reasons, is whenever I'm describing an animal, I go from the head down to the butt and to the bottom. So I'll talk about obviously the main key points first, like muscle and structure, but then I'll talk about elevated at the neck, or they have good rib cage, and then I'll go down to their hip and loin. And it's just going from front to back on every animal, or however you want to do it, but do it the same for every set of reasons and every placing that you have in every animal, because you want to give the judges a visual of what you're describing. So you have to really be descriptive and use details that are complete. Using your notes, that is one thing that it takes time to get used to not having your notes to look at. And you will have your notes just behind your back, in your pocket, or whatever. And the key thing to remember is the judges, they don't really know, what exactly they look like. They don't remember what exactly all the details about the animals were, or I'm kind of contradicting myself from what I said earlier, but they don't have the class right in front of them to see. So if you have to make up something about an animal, do it. It is better for you to go improv, like Paisley mentioned earlier, than to just stutter and look at your notes. And so that's just one of those things that you get better over time, and you get better at memorizing your sets. And it's something that you get more comfortable with, and you learn to not just use your notes as a crutch, but something that can help you. And I'm not saying that you have to go in there and have your set completely memorized. You can look at your notes for just a second if you need to get back on track for your thoughts, but you don't want to sit there, stare, and hesitate in your set of reasons by looking at your notes. But just to wrap up this slide, and all the steps for a successful set of reasons is just confidence. You have to go in there and act like you know what you're talking about. Fake it till you make it. If you have to make something up, do it. As long as you're confident about it, most of the time the judges don't even notice if it's a small detail. So that is the most important thing whenever you're giving a set of reasons. Just be confident. Be comfortable with yourself and your set of reasons, and you'll do just fine in the set of reasons room. Paisley, Travis, anything you want to add to that? I know that was quite a lot.
Yes, I know that was a whole lot, but definitely some high quality information that we all need to touch base on. And I was wondering if anyone had any questions, be free and don't be scared to type it in chat or put your microphone on. You can raise your hand. Have any questions that you need to do. And Travis, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, I can take over note format. Okay. So I don't know if my camera is easily accessible to all y'all, but I have my steno pad with me, and I'm going to put it really close to the camera so I can show y'all how I set up my reasons. So if y'all don't have a steno pad, that's totally fine. You can use it on a blank sheet of paper, or if you use a clipboard, I also like using a clipboard. I set my Scantron on it, and then I have paper or my steno on top of it. So I always want to make sure that my reasons are accessible to me when I'm memorizing my set or going over it multiple times for the reasons room. But many of the questions are, how do I even start about it? So this is my technique. Hope y'all can all see it. Let me know if you can. Okay, so at the top, I have all of my notes like this. I write notes on each individual calf. And then in the middle right here, I also write pairs and descriptive techniques of all of them and how they look. And then I compare them individually and I just see how they look all together. And that's just really easy for me to always have my notes close. And then it's even easier because I have my reasons box right below it. So most people write their reasons boxes differently. I think that this way is the easiest, especially for beginners, because you have, let me make sure I'm right. Okay. You have 3 boxes up for your top pair, then 3 boxes in the middle, and 3 boxes on the bottom. So you should have 9 boxes. If you want to go ahead and write this, feel free to. This is going to be helpful, and I will also post this later with Miss Megan. So right here, I have my grant for my class winner and who is the top of my top pair. So first, I will talk my class winner / the top of my top pair. That's going to be in my first box. Then in my second box, I'm going to talk my second place who has a grant over. Yes, ma'am, I can do that, absolutely. So then I'm going to talk my second place and grant it over it. Cole or Travis, do you want to take over? I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of this so everyone can see this.
Yes, I can take care of that, Paisley. So I'm not gonna lie, I do my reasons notes very, very similar to Paisley, just kind of a few less lines at the top, but I set them up very similar, and it kind of goes back to what Paisley mentioned earlier about not exactly just straight memorizing your sets. It kind of just allows me to sound like I'm giving an actual set and talking to the judge face to face instead of just writing down word for word what I'm going to go in the room and say. So kind of where Paisley left off. So once you have your notes on your each individual calf and kind of your pairs and kind of your descriptions of each one and identifications and things like that, you kind of work into what we kind of use we call our reasons boxes. And so like Paisley mentioned, you have your kind of opening of your reasons, which the most simple way to do that is say you're talking a class of market steers, then your opening would be, I like the class of market steers 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't have to get crazy with it. Very simple. Just go in there, start that immediately. So kind of write that at the top of your notes. And then after that, you kind of work into your grant, or maybe if you have a top pair of cattle that are very similar, or if you have a top pair class, like you have a class that might have a top pair and then a bottom pair type sort, then you'll kind of talk about how top pair of good cattle or kind of your descriptions of those two, but it was one's overwhelming muscle or overwhelming mass or whatever one was better at. You go ahead and state that and you write that in your notes, and then you move into your grants of that calf. So whether if you mention that one won the pair or won the class because he was heavier muscled and just more massive, then a lot of your grants of that calf will be his muscle grant. So whether he's stouter hipped, bigger backed, or whatever that may be. So you grant your first place one, and then after that, you'll go into your second box, which will kind of be a grant for your second place animal, because no animal is perfect. So there'll be something that your second place animal may do better or do just as good as your first place. So you'll write there why you appreciate your second animal and kind of grant him. But there's a reason he's second. So in your third box, you'll write notes of why that animal was second. So we mentioned that one was was heavier muscled and more massive. So your reason that your one might be second is he's just not as massive or not as heavy muscled. So that's your third box. And then after that, you'll move into your middle section of boxes, your middle pair. So you'll talk how whether this calf was second, but he still does all these things good because he beat other two calves. So you'd go ahead and grant your second place over your third place in your middle box. And then it's kind of the same thing from there out. You do the same thing like you did in your top pair. You'd grant your third place over your first place in that second box in the middle. But there's a reason that calf is third. So then you would grant criticize your third place animal or kind of re-grant your second place, I guess you could do. There's multiple ways you could do that. And then same thing in your bottom pair. It's very consistent. And so the box setup is kind of one of those things that allows the reasons taker to follow along with what you're talking about, because you talk the cattle in pairs. You're not jumping back and forth between pairs and numbers. It's very specific. It's very clear. The pairs you're talking about, when you walk in there, the judge knows you're talking about 1 and 2. And then when you go to your middle pair and you make that decisive, you say in the middle pair, it's clear that 2 is whatever 2 is better. And the judge immediately picks up that you're talking about your middle pair. You make sure to use identifications instead of just continuously calling numbers of the calves. Say 1's a yellow calf, you can call him the yellow calf, or 2's the paint. So use color identifications. Use like if a calf has a nose ring, that's a really good identification you can use, like the nose ring calf. Or try to throw identifications in your set that'll kind of slice it up a little bit more instead of just putting in straight numbers. And so that's some things you can write in your boxes that Paisley mentioned and kind of showed y'all earlier. And so send it on the slide 8. Oh, sorry. Slide 8. Where is that? That's the next one. I don't see it. Paisley, for some reason I don't hear you.
Probably because I was accidentally muted. My bad. I just added it on there, so I'm not really sure why it's not showing up. Do I need to reshare it to you?
Let me try refreshing, maybe.
It's got to refresh.
There it goes.
Also, there it is. Sorry for the camera quality, y'all. For some reason, my computer has very horrible pictures, but I tried my best.
So, when we were talking about how you set up your boxes, so this is where, can y'all see my mouse? Okay, so this is where Paisley was talking about how she writes her identifications and descriptions of the calves during the class. It's very similar when you go to a contest and you just write notes over a questions class. This is very similar to that. So you'd write your notes over each individual animal here, maybe some pairs and such and things like that. Now here is where we were talking about how each box works. So this first box would be your grant for your first place calf. And then you'd go into your second box would be a grant for your second place calf over your first. But like I said, there's a reason that calf was second. So this would be your criticism for your second place calf in your third box here. And so like I said, it'd be the same thing for each, your top pair, your middle pair, and bottom pair. And that just goes back to making it very clear and decisive of what you're talking about and allows that reasons taker to really follow along with what you're saying and not get lost during your sets.
Yes, that was spot on. And if y'all like to do your boxes a different way, that's totally okay. But the 3x3 method is the most helpful for not only me, but other livestock judges that I've spoke with many times. We all find that the 3x3 method is probably the most helpful and the most organized. And I think staying organized is also another way to help you stay calm and help you get your set memorized and ready to go for the reasons taker.
Exactly. Like I said, I mean, I'm a perfect example. Paisley said a lot of people use a 3x3, and I've used a 3x3 box my whole entire reasons career. It's very effective and has allowed a lot of judges to be very successful at giving reasons. So just kind of quick overview. When you're giving your sets, you want it to be pleasant to hear. That reasons taker will probably be listening to anywhere between 100 and 150 sets that day, and so he doesn't want to hear the same thing over and over again. He doesn't want to hear that same monotone voice continuously. So try to throw some things in there that'll make your sets unique and pleasant for that judge to hear. Kind of going back to the same thing of allowing your judge to follow along with your sets. That kind of is where the 3-box, comes in handy. Easy to listen to. So be very clear, like Cole was talking about earlier. Cover the major points of the class. Don't get caught up. A lot of people, you'll talk, they want to give 2-minute sets. A lot of times, like when you're listening to 100 and 150 sets, quick and easy sets will get you the same score as writing a book and trying to give a 2-minute set, probably give you better scores. So be covering the major points, be very specific, very decisive, and get out of the room in a short amount of time and allow that reasons taker not to get bored during your sets. Use correct gender in terms on particular classes. You don't want to get caught up on the pickle. And then given in comparison terms. So just kind of talk the classes back and forth. I like to call it use ESTs, so the biggest or the heaviest muscled. So we call those ESTs. So kind of use those during your reasons. And so next slide. So we talked about that in the boxes, breaking it into 4 animals and a 3 pair. That's your top boxes, your middle pair, and your bottom pair. We talked about that in our boxes a while ago. And each pair is discussed in 3 areas. Also goes back to our boxes. Yes, Paisley, thank you. We're gonna take a slight pause because I know we're going over a lot and there's a lot of kind of information dump at one time. We're gonna take a few minutes to kind of open the floor for questions. You don't even have to type it into the chat. Just turn your mic on and ask away, and that's kind of what we're here for. And we'll kind of take a minute to kind of go over some things that you might not set right or you might have some questions about.
Well, I guess our beginners are actually advanced beginners because we are all retaining the information great. Now, I know some are all a bit shy, so I will ask a question that I had when I was younger. Oh, someone's hand is raised. Awesome. Christopher, if you want to go ahead and turn your mic on, go ahead and ask away.
So, I don't understand the 3x3 method, really. And also, what if we don't know like anything about the animal? Or I have done this, like I've done livestock judging before, but I just kind of don't understand really much about the animal usually.
Okay. Travis, will you go ahead and go back to slide 8, if you mind? And Christopher, the 3x3 method. So I'm going to go ahead and answer both of your questions for you. So do you see how I have 9 boxes and I have Grant written in the first 6 and I have Crit written in the other 3?
I still can't see the slide.
Hey, Christopher, do you have your is your camera on?
Wait a
'Cause
second.
you may have your camera pulled up on the whole entire screen, and that may be hiding your slides. I'm not sure how that works.
Oh, wait a second. It doesn't work with my camera turned on. Wait a second. Going to my settings. Now.
Hey, Christopher, we'll email out the slides later. We're going to let them keep rolling so we can continue on with our workshop. Okay, thank you.
So since you can't access the slides right now, it's basically just 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So if you want to sketch out 9 boxes on your sheet of paper, and in each box, there's going to be grants and crits for each of the animal that you're talking about. And in terms of not knowing how to talk about the animal, you're going to talk about the muscle shape of them, how much shape they have over their back, how brown they look from behind, if they have lots of rib shape, if they're heavy boned, light boned, maybe that they're really short and stubby necked, maybe that they're super extended through their head or neck, maybe they're a little bit chunky. You can write different details about them, if they have a red ear tag, nose rings, if they have the dwarf gene, they may be monkey mouth, different descriptions like that you can describe your animal. That's going to be what you want to put in your reasons. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
And one thing, as you continue to judge more and get more comfortable with the judging side of it, that'll make your reasons a whole lot easier. And so, when you're with your coach or whoever kind of teaches you how to judge or whatever that situation is, don't kind of learn how to judge the livestock for sure. That's important because it helps to give reasons if you place the class right, but also kind of really work on the terminology side, because learning the terminology will make your sets go so much smoother and allow you to understand how to give those sets and make those sets sound really smart and like you know that species of animal when you may not even show it. So just kind of work your best to just learn the actual livestock judging side of it. That's going to come with time. And then as you're doing that, try to really hone in on the terminology side of things, so that'll make your sets flow a lot easier and make them sound a lot smarter.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Yeah, any more, feel free to ask. Well, I guess not. But
And heck, I mean, it's kind of a very conversational thing. If anybody has a different way they may do their reasons, if they want to give a quick a description of it, like I said, you don't have to do the 3-box method. And so you may have a way that somebody may not like this 3-box message or method. So if you have kind of wanted to give a description of how you do it, how it may work for you, there may be somebody else who might hone in on that idea and it may work for them too. So it's going to be a very conversational the rest of the way out. So like anytime, raise your hand. We're kind of here as a conversation to help you all out. So just don't be afraid to turn your mic off and go ahead and start talking.
Okay, I'm not seeing any hands yet, which is totally fine. So I'm going to go ahead and state something that I was really confused on when I went into the reasons room, is what to wear. Now, what to wear in your reasons room ranges upon everyone. It can be so different, but you always want to look professional. So I would prefer slacks. If you're a guy, I would prefer khakis. I wear slacks a lot. I wear black, and I wear a blazer. And you can wear boots or very nice professional shoes, maybe twisted X's, or some people like to wear the dress shoes that you may wear to prom, but I know none of us are going to prom at this age, which is totally, just normal. But if you always want to look professional and well dressed, and make sure you have run a comb through your hair, girls. I know sometimes we get a little lazy in the morning, so make sure that we brush our hair before we go to the contest. You want to look professional and ready to judge when you go in the reasons room. Looking confident is going to help you a lot for your first impression.
Good point, Paisley. I know we hadn't talked about that, but that is a very big point because as soon as you walk in the room, what you're wearing is going to be the first impression that that judge has of you. So that's a very, very important first impression because, just be honest, reasons are made up a lot of times on first impressions, and so that'll help your score out a lot. Looking professional and just looking the part and looking like you're ready to give a set of reasons.
Great. I saw one hand raised. Oop, the hand went back down. Okay. So that is a common misconception that people have. Typically, with intermediate reasons takers, you're not going to get knocked off for how you placed a class if you defend how you placed it. You have to talk each animal accurately. So let's say I placed it 1, 2, 3, 4, and the placing was 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a complete bust. But let's say I talked each animal exactly how they look, and I talked the way I viewed them and what I preferred. The judge or the reasons taker will hear your descriptions of the animal, and you're most likely not going to get deducted on how you placed the class as long as you accurately describe how you placed it and how the animals are looking, because you don't want to lie about the animals, because if you're lying about how they look, you're going to get deducted off of it. But as placing wise, you should not get deducted off of it. No, ma'am.
And Paisley can attest for this. There's been plenty of times that we have taken a 3-pair swap on a class and still talked uppers of 40s, like 48s and 49s, because all it is that judge knows what the cattle look like or the class looks like. So talk them accurately, talk them how you see them, and you can still make a really good score in the reasons room. And that's why we love reasons so much, because you can slightly mess up a class and still make up for it in the reasons room. And so that's why reasons is a big aspect of the livestock judging and why we love it so much, because it can kind of be a crutch for you even when you kind of slightly mess up a class.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that statement, because I myself have bombed plenty of classes and had to talk sets on them, and I have talked my way out of a 38, and it's so great to talk your way out of a bombing class set, because then you can get all your points back with still doing pretty good in the reasons room. So back to this slide right here, be comparative. So tell the truth. That is the main key to helping you talk a good set, because you don't want to lie. Telling the truth is going to be accurate in how you describe the animal, and the reason taker is going to note that and say, this girl knows how to, or boy, knows how to describe this class extremely well, and you're going to get a lot of points for how accurately you describe them.
Okay, kind of back what we were talking about earlier, kind of using comparative terms. So if you use your boxes, this is kind of where these kind of fall in. We talked about using ESTs, and so these are very similar to that. So if you have, especially when you're granting cattle, so your grants may be that one is bigger boned, or one is longer fronted, or has more muscle. And so when you're giving a set of reasons, don't so much just talk the cattle for what they are, but there's a reason you place them a certain way, and so that's why we got to use these comparative terms so that you tell the reasons taker, hey, this is why I place them this way, because anybody can go in there and talk what the cattle look like, but you've got to be specific on why you place them that way. So that's where using these comparative terms come in handy, whether, especially if you're using your boxes, you can use these comparative terms. And I liked one because he was bigger boned, or I liked him because he had more muscle. And so yes, you can talk. You want to talk the cattle accurately for what they look like, but you also want to give the reasons taker a reason of why you place it that way, and that's where these comparative terms come into use in that situation. And like I said, at the bottom, don't use the same term over and over again. And so this will come with time, learning the more terminology that I mentioned, because that's another thing just to make your sets more unique and not make it sound like you're being repetitive. And so that's a big thing that we like to hit on. Mike, Paisley. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Transition terms are a big one. I know I personally struggled a lot with transition terms because I didn't know what to say. Very, very common ones. If you're talking your grant to your crit, so let's say I'm talking how my second place is better than my first place, and now I'm going to talk about how my second place is second. For example, I'd be like, now, this broody red Angus heifer is definitely stouter in her pin set. However, transition term there. However, study her from her base width. She's pretty closed up from her front shoulder. Does that make sense? That word choice is pretty bad, but does the however make sense in that context? How I talked her up really high on her good pin set, and I said, however, she's pretty narrow. Does that make sense? Like that?
Especially if any of y'all are, my bad. If you're in an English class or some sort of like that and you're ever writing things, it's very, very similar to that. You use the same, I know y'all are young, but y'all are still just doing simple writing and stuff like that. So anytime you use a transition, or heck, even in everyday just conversation, it's like, well, I really like this truck, but however, it's too expensive. Just simple stuff like that. So kind of throw in those transition words in there, and it kind of lets the reason taker keep up with how your set's flowing and what you're talking about.
Yes, and the next slide is full of transition terms. So you want to go ahead and switch? Y'all can feel free to write all these down. I use just about all of these, if not more. So transitions are also great to getting your creativity in there and saying I criticize, I recognize. Those are good ones. Saying that you recognize the animal is not as good as what you seem it would. So use transition terms that will help you make your set flow easier and make you sound more confident along the way as well.
One thing I want to add to the transition terms is they're really important, obviously, and you want to make it seem like you're actually excited to talk about the reasons. So, like, if your class winner is a clear class winner, you want to be like, I really like this class winner, or you want to really raise up the steers or lambs or pigs that you're talking about, and on the ones that are placed lower that aren't as great as the ones ahead of him, you don't want to put it down too much. And so saying stuff like, I criticize this steer because he is post-legged and is the narrowest muscled, or narrowest made and lightest muscled, you still want to say, however, he's really neat up front and he is very extended out of his body. You just want to keep describing him using those terms, and you want to bring together your whole set. And this goes back to the box method. In my third box, whenever you're going from your top pair to middle pair to bottom pair, I like to use carcass terms. Talk about the cutability, and eventually these animals are going to the market. So you want to talk about how this one will hang a bigger carcass on the rail, and that can really transition you into your top pairs and middle pairs and bottom pairs, because usually that's what separates them is their size and how they are in their meat capabilities. So that's one thing that can help transition. That's one thing that I've used personally in my reasons.
Yes, that's great. Oh, taking notes. This slide is so helpful because I know a steno pad or a sheet of paper is not enough paper. I'm telling you, I take so many notes, and I also write very big. So shortening your stuff and making it super small, like BT, big top, SS, size and scale, those are awesome. I like to do when I'm talking about what color they are because I like to say colors in my set. If I'm saying the black and white calf, I'll write like all right, BL/WH, and then, or I'll just put dash PT, which means paint. So I'll talk about the painted up calf. That's a good way to speak about that one. So taking notes is awesome because you can shorten the way your notes are, abbreviate your words, and also you don't want to write too much in each box because that's the way you're going to get overwhelmed. So just make sure that you take notes very efficiently and very organized because that is going to help you so much. Also, I just remembered this about posture earlier. As you can tell, I love talking with my hands. I've been talking with my hands almost this whole presentation. Earlier, we said you can put your hands behind your back. You can also put your hands in front of you. If you're a guy, most guys put their hands in front of them and then they stand like shoulder width apart. For girls, I used to be the girl that stood like a grown man. I had my hands in front of me and I had my feet spread out really wide. And I was like, I like this class. And I was all up in their business. Now, as a girl, you want to come off poised. So I like to have my feet almost in first position, if that's right. I have one foot like this and the other foot like that. You want to have your feet together, if not one pointing out. That's how I like to do it, and I always have my hands behind my back. That's the most efficient way to have a very good posture and come off confident and poised to the racing speaker.
Good point. Very good point.
We've already done a whole lot of these already. Oh, do you want to go back to the bottom animal one? I think we can go ahead. I'll speak on that one for a brief moment. So typically, whoever we have in last place is not a very good animal compared to the other three. Now, as a reasons taker, they hear everyone dog and talk so badly about the last place. Now he has no good qualities. Don't hurt the animal they're talking about too bad. Don't say he's the flattest and lightest and narrowest. Don't throw in too many EST terms, but make sure you still talk about how bad he is. But don't dog on him too hard to the point where it just sounds like you're describing a horrible animal and he has no good. So make sure, as Cole said earlier, make sure you're sounding excited about the class and talking up each animal and then setting down and realizing that this one's actually not that good. So just make sure that you're not dogging on the animal too harshly.
And one thing we mentioned a lot about the last few slides, we're talking about top pair, bottom pair, top pair, middle pair, and bottom pair. So if you have a class that you think was pretty straightforward, you had a pretty straightforward winner, and then maybe a middle pair, and then, like Paisley said, a pretty bad one to go last. So if it's a pretty easy pair and you feel confident that most people would agree with that, make that a very short pair. So if you have one that is really, really good and just leads the class for a lot of reasons, don't sit there and spend 30 seconds talking about that that calf or that animal, because there's no reason to talk about him that long because he wins very easily. So make it very short and decisive. This calf wins hands down. Give your reasons real short and sweet. Maybe have one grant for your second place calf, but there's also a reason he's second and you're one that won hands down. Make that top pair very short and sweet. Now, if your middle pair is pretty close, that means there's a lot of differences to talk about. So that middle pair can be a much longer than your top pair because there's a lot of things to talk about because that was a close pair. And so be specific and decisive about how you talk about a close pair, but be very broad and be very short and decisive on a pair that's pretty, I guess, has a big cut on it. That's not very close at all. So you're not sitting there and just boring the reasons taker because that calf, most people probably put that calf first because there's a reason they put him first. He's much better than anything in there. And like Paisley said, if a calf that's last, most of the time is not very good. So don't get drawn on about your bottom pair because that's normally a pretty easy pair and nobody wants to listen to you talk about him for that long.
Yes, that was like right on the money. Cole, do you want to go ahead and take up these last few slides of about 13 steps?
Yes, okay, so 13 steps might seem like a lot, but most of these are really very simple. What it does, it essentially just prepares you for what is about to happen in your reasons room, and it's very, very clear on what your goal is. And what your goal is just describe the animals. That's really all it is. It's not, some huge long speech about exactly every detail that you judged in the class and how you placed them. It's just very simple, clear, concise. It is what you are describing and why you placed them. So step number 1, give the name of the class you are placing. You want to start off letting the judge know what exactly you're talking about. And I like to say, I like the market steer class 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure in your first sentence, whenever you're describing the class name and you're placing, that you talk slow and very clear. You want them to not be confused on what you're talking about until, halfway through. And they're like, oh, he's talking about the steers. You want to make sure they know up front. Step 2, your opening statement should briefly explain why your top animal wins the class. So, like we said earlier, you should really brag about your top animal because they win the class. You want to sound excited about it. And so you want to make sure I like this steer to win the class because he is the heaviest muscled, the widest made, the thickest. You want to really tell and describe why he wins. And you don't have to go into great acute detail. It's just the big things that make him a clear winner. Now, step 3, criticize your top place animal. Tell them what you see, not what you would change. So, like we said earlier, no animal is perfect, and there's going to be things that you would change about the animal. And so, how I would do this is say, whenever you're talking about your top pair, you're like, one is a very heavy muscled steer and very wide based, and then you go into your second place. And while 2 may have just a little bit more length and extension, he just doesn't have enough to get over the class winner. And that's just something that you can incorporate into your middle pairs. And it's definitely something that you have to get used to and you have to get better at over time. But you don't want to, describe your first place as the perfect animal that will beat every other animal on earth, because it's not perfect. It never will be. And you don't want to tell them exactly what you would change about it. Like, you don't want to say, oh, in my first place, I would change it by making it a little bit lengthier, but just mention it in your second place. It could be a little bit more lengthier or is less lengthier than the second place. But it's just one thing that you have to get used to doing, and it takes practice. Step 4, tell why your first place animal beats your second place animal. Obviously, you describe all the good things about your first place, but you have to say why it beats your second place. For example, my top pair might be like, 1 is the biggest made, widest made, and is the heaviest muscled over the second steer. In my top pair, while 2 is the more lengthier of the top pair, he just doesn't have enough to beat the first steer. And so it's really just talking about your pairs and telling why you're placing 1 over 2. Step 5, tell what you liked better about your second place than you did about your class winner. Again, that's just going into the, for example, 2 could have been a little bit lengthier than the class winner, but not enough. And it's just one of those things, again, you just have to practice and get better at and getting your terms memorized and straight. Step 6, criticize your second place animal. Again, no animal is perfect, and you want to tell why they're second place, because they're second place for a reason. Step 7, compare your second and third place animals, or tell why your second place animal beats your third place animal. Just like your top pair, you want to get into your middle pairs too, and you want to say they are still a second place, and this is why they are second over your third. And this is another thing about your transition terms. You just have to really clearly describe the animals and what makes them better than the one that is behind them. Step 8, grade to your third place animal, or tell what you liked about your third place animal. Again, obviously, every animal has good things about them, even if they are in the bottom pair or middle pair. Every animal that you judge will have something good about them, and you want to make sure to show that or tell that to the judge. So make sure you're always saying what you like about them. And step 9, obviously criticize or point out your third place animal's weakness. Exactly, they are third place for a reason, and you want to say that in your middle or bottom pair. Step 10, tell why your third place animal beats your fourth place animal. Again, it's just the pairs. You have to tell why 3 is better than 4. They're asking to go back one more slide.
Yes, ma'am. We'll go back one more.
Yes. So this is step 4 through 7. This is mainly talking about your pairs and why the 1 is better than 2, why the 2 is better than 3. And if you have to, jot this down or take pictures, it will be up later. But this is one of those things you really, really have to get down. You have to say why they beat the other animal. So that's just one thing that you practice and get better at over time. Go ahead a slide. So step 11 through 13 this is your bottom pair. Step 11, grant your 4th place animal or point out his or her major strengths. Like I said, no animal is perfect, but no animal has everything bad about them. Every animal has something good about them. And to be honest, if you can't see it, just make something up. Like if it's a really narrow-made and long, skinny animal in last place, just say he was a very long, extended animal. Make it sound, you don't have to say he was very skinny and long. You can just say extended. Make sure you say something good about it. Don't completely put down that animal because it does have something good about it, or at least it will in its future, or it did in the past. You just have to, say it very briefly. And step 12, criticize your 4th place animal or tell why it's last. 4th place is last for a reason. If it has all those bad qualities about it, let them be known. Don't completely butcher the animal, but tell them this is the narrowest, lightest muscled, smallest. You have to describe the animal for what it is, obviously. And then step 13, your closing statement. If you have to, go and say your placing again. That is why I placed the market steer class 1, 2, 3, 4. And let me go back a sec. Whenever you're talking about your 4th place animal, what I like to say last is, and although the 4th place animal is very extended, he is the lightest made, narrowest, and has the least amount of muscle, therefore he is last. You have to make sure you have a very clear ending. You have to make sure the judges know that you are done with your speech. And that's really all it is. Those are 13 steps. And over time, those kind of just blend together. And at the end of your reasons, always say thank you. Just let the judges know that you appreciate them for being there. Thank them for their time, because they are taking time out of their day to come listen to hundreds of kids speak about their reasons and how they place the class. So just make sure you tell them thank you or have a good day. Just make them feel appreciated. And it really just gives a good impression about you as a speaker and a judger.
And that's on the slides. So,
Okay, great.
are there any questions? I know that was a lot in a short amount of time, so there's bound to be some sort of questions. And like Ms. Megan said, these slides will be sent out. So if y'all have anything that you might have missed and want to look back at, we will get these slides to you. But like I said, the floor is open for questions.
And if you want us to go back to something that we talked about and talk about it in simpler terms or something that is easier for a beginner to understand, feel free, because we are here to help you. And we want to make sure that you understand what exactly we're talking about.
Looks like Christopher may be typing.
Yes, I'm ready to answer that question whenever you have time. Okay.
Miss
So,
Meg-
Hey, yeah. Hey, Christopher, I'll email them out on Monday when I email out the links to all of the recordings.
Perfect.
advice for a
Okay,
few
so that
freeze.
is a
That is
very
such a good
good
question. So I'm a victim of freezing. I actually happened to me at state last summer, and I froze, and then I took a quick breath, and then I just carried on with the rest of my set. If you have a bobble in your set, or you have a big freeze like what you stated, you're gonna want to brush past it. It's like swerving, and you're like, oh, I just swerved. Keep on straight. Keep on going straight. Because if you egg on that one bobble that you had, or that you freeze for a brief moment, the rest of your set is just going to carry on to that bobble, and it's not going to go out. But if you start like how you started your set and you bobble, then you carry on to how good you finished out throughout, that's going to be great. You want to stay confident throughout, even if you freeze or you have a small bobble. So as long as you just keep on pushing through it, you're going to be fine.
9 times out of 10, it goes back to the fact that the judges don't have your set written down in front of them. There's been many times that at district last year, I bobbled a Beefmaster set and was not very happy about it, but I continued to go with my set. And afterwards, talking to the reasons taker, they never recognized it, and I think I talked to 8 on the set. So 9 times out of 10, as long as freezing is different, but a bobble, a lot of times the reasons taker don't even recognize it because they don't realize that you're supposed to have something there that you didn't have. So continue with it. Don't let that bobble affect you. And if you freeze, take a breath. I know if it's a bad freeze, I know Cole mentioned earlier, a lot of times you'll have your steno in your back pocket. If you just completely forget, pull your steno out real quick, recollect your thoughts, figure out where you are, and continue from there. It's better than just walking out of the room mid-set. And so the advice for fidgeting, big thing for that, I know Paisley said guys a lot of times put your hands in front of you. Me personally, I put my hands behind me for that reason. So any sort of fidgeting happens behind me and the judge can't see it, whether it's like just moving my hands or fingers. So that's kind of one thing I do to help with that is putting my hands behind me. And so if I do fidget, it's behind me where the judge can't see. Other than that, biggest thing is so you don't fidget. I like to keep my sets pretty short so I'm just not kind of boring myself too. And so biggest thing is that stand up tall. If you have a problem fidgeting, put your hands behind you and fidget with them instead of moving your body because that's just going to take the reason taker's eyes off of what you're saying and going to focus on what you're fidgeting with.
I saw the advice for note taking on here. Oh, go ahead, Cole.
Okay, so yeah, this goes back to the confidence. Okay, so question, should he stand still or should he move around? You don't want to stand straight as a board and like stay still like this. You want to be loose, you want to be confident in your reasons, and you want to, if you have to, talk with your hands. If it makes you uncomfortable to stand there with your hands out to your side or behind your back, talk with your hands if needed. Just make sure it isn't a distraction to the judge. And for me, standing still, I cannot do it. I cannot stand still. But you don't want to sway, you don't want to lean back and forth or side to side. What I like to do sometimes is whenever I'm moving from my top to middle to bottom pair, I like to take just like small half steps. And also, there's known as the triangle method. I use it for public speaking all the time. But going into, yes, do not walk around. But I do, half steps. It just gets into my points and lets the judges know what I'm talking about and going to a different point. I cannot stand still. I cannot do it. It is different for everyone, but do not walk around and do not have a distraction.
Okay, so I saw this advice for note-taking question quite a while ago. We just kept on talking about new questions and new questions. So I know that everyone likes to take notes differently. I always start from the ground up. I start in butt view, and I take notes on their bone size. Then I take notes on how their butt looks and how wide they are. Then I take notes, and then I go to the front up, and I take notes on each specific part of the animal that I like or I find interesting, or that I definitely need to speak a set on. And then I go to my other animal, and I go from ground up all the way to the top. Then I go forwards, and I do that for all 4 animals. And then once I get a basis of how each animal looks and my first impression of them, I then start to recognize who's going to be my top, who's going to be my bottom, who my middle is going to be. Then I start to compare the animals, and I take notes on how I'm comparing them. Thumbs up if that makes sense to you.
Okay, question real quick. Would it be helpful if I looked up a set and possibly figured out how to play the video for y'all just to kind of, it may be a little advanced, but just to kind of, for y'all to visualize kind of what a set sounds like. Not sure if I can make that happen, but I want to know if that would be useful.
I would try it. I think that would be very useful to everyone. And we're almost about finished with this meeting, so I think that would be great to go ahead and wrap up that. While Travis is trying to find a set, does anyone have any more questions for us? Me and Cole are very free to answer them. I saw someone typing earlier, then it went away. So maybe we answered it as we were talking. Okay. So, okay, great. Market steers. That's definitely what intermediates will be talking. Probably market steers and market lambs, right?
Every year it changes. Normally it changes market steers, and then yeah, it's always market steers, but it changes from bears to lambs, I believe, every year. I can't remember though. Maybe this guy. Hang on. I know that's hogs. Never mind. Let's see if this ought to be a good set.
Yeah. Okay. I'll turn my mic off so we can all.
Tell me if you can hear it or not when it starts playing.
Okay. No.
Okay, 1 second. Let me.
Just for example, does everyone see what she's wearing at the moment? Blazer, nice blouse underneath, hair nicely brushed, and hers is obviously braided. She looks very professional.
I'm gonna stop sharing real quick,
You're good.
and it may allow me once I reshare to include sound. There we go. Oh, let me see. Let's try this again. Go back a little bit. How about now?
I placed the market steers 1, 4, 3, 2, where I instantly found one to win. To keep it simple, he's the stoutest, most optimally finished steer in the class. He's the biggest topped, thickest ended calf that will hit the cooler with product yield in his favor. Now I'll admit that 4 is a long-bodied steer who's the most functional in the use to his ankles off either end of his skeleton. But at the same time, he's also the shallow-bodied, high-flank steer who also needs more genuine width and dimension to compete with my class winner. So he's second. In a close middle pair of steers that offer trade-offs in terms of their build, I prefer the more compositionally correct 4/3 in my middle pair. Not only is 4 a fresher handling steer, who most readily fills his tracks off the highest circumference of foot and bone, but he's also more genuine in his shape down his top and over his hip. Now I can't deny that 3 is a practical, easy feeding kind of a steer, who's deeper and more productive about his rear rib and flank. However, I feel that the stale handling calf has spent too many inefficient days on feed, and I feel his extra fat cover has compromised his cutability. So he's third. Nonetheless, 3 still has a distinct advantage in terms of muscle mass and genuine width over 2 in my bottom pair. 3 is a bigger bodied, safer grading option that squares up with more shape down his top and over his hip, and should consequently rib a larger eye. Sure, 2 takes a long stride when set into motion, but I can't justify getting the lightest muscled, flattest made, narrowest base steer off the bottom of the class. So he's fourth. Thank you.
Travis, thank you for letting us listen to that set. Do we all notice how she was very slow paced? She described each animal individually. Then she decided to compare her top pair and then her middle pair. She compared her transitions very well. And I don't know about y'all, but I did notice her bobble.
Yes.
Excuse me, and then she moved on. That's exactly what you need to do if you have a bobble. As you can tell, I talk very fast. So that's one thing I struggle with a lot. And I also stutter because I talk very fast. So I need her pace, and she needs to be a little bit more louder. I know voice control is kind of also my problem, but she seemed a little bit quieter, maybe because she's on camera. You don't want to come off too loud, but definitely loud enough so you look very confident to the raisins taker.
And one thing we didn't mention, and we might have, I just didn't catch it. When you're talking a set, and it kind of just adds some uniqueness to your sets. If you have one that you say, like say a top pair of 2 calves, and you've already granted your second place, and you're kind of going into your kind of criticism of your second place, I almost like to sound like if there's something, but this calf was long and extended. This is a terrible set, really, but say this calf was longer and more extended out of his front 1/3, but he does something wrong. I like to sound almost disappointed. And I kind of change my voice and how I talk. So I may be really strong. I want to be really strong where I really like something, but I kind of want to change my voice and be like, well, this one is this. Kind of sound disappointed because you're like, well, this calf could be good, but he doesn't do this right. And that just kind of adds some uniqueness to your set so you're not so monotone the whole time.
And that goes into having a clear set. And I left a comment about inflection. That's just your pitch of voice. Whenever you're talking about a set and you get a little bit higher pitched, and whenever you come to an ending of your thought, you get lower pitched. And that's just one thing. It helps the judges stay on track, helps you not talk as fast, and keep a clear, organized pace. And so that's just one thing. You need to be very clear and confident.
Yes. Voice flow is very, very helpful for the reasons taker to stay engaged in your set and not zone out and hopefully get you a high score. All right, well, that was an awesome set that we listened to. Does anyone have any more questions? We've went through almost all the slides. We're about done with our presentation. We finished all the information that I think all three of us as speakers have for y'all. So if y'all don't have any more questions, I think we can go ahead and join the main room, and Miss Megan can give us further detail on what to do next.
You actually can just go ahead and jump on off, and we will see you all down the road. Be looking for an email from me with a recording, and I'll put the slides in there and a link to the evaluation. So I hope you all have a great rest of your evening and a happy Easter.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our speakers. Y'all did a super, super job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank all of y'all for listening to us this evening.
Yes, thank y'all for listening to us. We probably yapped a bit too much, but thank y'all for